Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to tackle one of the most important skills in communication, something you're doing right now without even realizing it. We're talking about perception. It is the invisible filter that shapes your entire reality.
Come on, you know you have. Think about a time you were sure someone was mad at you, but really they were just having a bad day. Or you thought a task would be a piece of cake and it turned into a total nightmare. We've all been there, right? That little gap between what's actually going on and what we think is going on? Well, that's the world of perception.
So, what's the official story? Well, perception isn't just about passively seeing or hearing things. No, it's an active process. It's got three parts. You select what to notice, you organize that info, and then you interpret it to create your own personal version of reality. Seriously, think of your brain as a movie studio's director, editor, and narrator, all working at lightning speed.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to pull back the curtain on this whole process. First, we'll see how your brain even decides what to focus on. Then, we'll look at how it sorts all that chaos into mental folders. After that, we'll get to the juicy part, how it actually creates meaning and stories. We'll also touch on some hidden influences. And then, the big payoff, a few tools to help you sharpen your own perception skills.
Okay, first up, selection. Look, right now you are being absolutely bombarded with information. Sights, sounds, feelings. There's no way you could ever process all of it, so your brain has to make some tough calls about what gets your attention and what just gets ignored. This photo is a perfect example. Just take a quick look. Who did you see first? I'm gonna bet it was the goalie in the bright green jersey. Why? Simple. He's different. He stands out from the crowd. Our brains are hardwired to notice stuff that's new, that's different, or that's somehow important to what we're trying to do. So, you've picked out a few bits of information from the chaos. Great! Now what? Your brain can't just have all this stuff floating around. It needs to organize it, and it needs to do it fast. To pull this off, we use these amazing mental blueprints. Psychologists call them schema, to bring some order to the madness.
The first kind of blueprint is what we call a prototype. This is basically your best example of something. You know, when I say perfect friend, a specific person probably just popped in your head, right? That person is your prototype, and you kind of unconsciously measure all your other friends against that ideal.
Next up, we've got personal constructs. Just think of these as your own personal mental yardsticks. They're always bipolar, meaning they have two opposite ends, like kind versus not kind, or responsible versus not responsible. We use these little scales to size people up in a split second.
Now, let's see another one of these tools in action. Take a good look at this picture. Just let your eyes wander over the scene for a moment. What do you see? You see three older gentlemen. They're playing a game of cards. What else starts to bubble up in your mind?
Okay, let's be real here. What assumptions just flashed through your brain? Did you make any quick judgments about them, about their lives, what they're talking about, who they are, just from this one snapshot? That little mental shortcut you just took, that's our next organizational tool.
And there it is. Stereotypes. A stereotype is just a predictive generalization that we apply to an entire group of people or a type of situation. Now, look, they're not all bad. They're incredibly fast and efficient for navigating the world. But, and this is a big but, as we all know, they can be super inaccurate and get us into real trouble when we treat them as fact.
And the last tool in our organizational kit is scripts. A script is basically a guide for how to behave in a familiar setting. You have a script for ordering a coffee, you have one for a job interview. Think about it. When someone asks, "How are you?" you don't even think, you just run the script. "Fine, thanks. And you?" It's like putting your social brain on autopilot.
Okay, deep breath. We've selected information and we've organized it. But now we get to the most important step of all, interpretation. This is where we assign meaning to everything. This is where we write the stories that literally become our reality. We make sense of the world through something called attributions. Attributions are the explanations we come up with, the cause and effect stories we tell ourselves to answer the biggest question: why? Why did my boss seem annoyed in that meeting? Why is my partner being so quiet? The answers we invent shape everything that follows. Now, these stories we tell ourselves, they have a couple of key dimensions. The big two are locus and stability. Locus just asks, was the cause internal to the person, like it's about their personality, or was it external, something about the situation? And stability asks, is this a stable, ongoing thing, or was this an unstable, one-off event? So if your coworker misses a deadline, do you think it's because they're lazy? That's internal and stable. Or do you think they had a family emergency? That's external and unstable. See how that completely changes the story?
And speaking of stories, here's a fun little bias we are all guilty of.
It's called the self-serving bias. It's simple. When we succeed at something, we tend to credit our own amazing internal qualities. I aced that test because I'm a genius. But when we fail, we blame outside forces. I failed because the teacher made the test way too hard. It's a pretty clever way to protect our own ego, isn't it? Of course, this whole selection, organization, interpretation process isn't happening in some sterile lab. There are all these powerful forces that are constantly shaping every single step. And that, right there, is why two people can witness the exact same event and walk away with two completely different stories. And here are 4 of the biggest filters. First, your physiology. I mean, are you tired? Are you hungry? That changes everything. Then there's your culture, the shared beliefs of the world you grew up in. Your social and professional roles matter too. You see the world differently as a parent than you do as a CEO. And finally, your own unique cognitive abilities. All these things are coloring the lens through which you see absolutely everything. Okay, so we've mapped out the whole process. We see how it works. Now for the payoff. How can we use all this knowledge to become a little more aware, a little more accurate, and ultimately, way better communicators? This is one of my all-time favorite tools. It's called the abstraction ladder. And what it does is show us how quickly we can climb from a concrete, observable fact at the bottom all the way up to these really abstract judgments and actions at the top. Let's walk through an example. Check out how fast this happens. Down at the bottom rung, you have reality. Andrea is nervous, and she's asking questions. Okay, we climb up one rung to our perception. Wow, she's asking a lot of questions. Then we slap a label on it. She's taking up more than her fair share of time. From there, it's a tiny leap to a huge judgment. Andrea is so selfish and immature. And what's the result of that judgment? Action. I'm just going to avoid her from now on. See that? We went from a simple observation to a full-blown narrative and action plan in seconds. So how do we stop ourselves from scrambling up that ladder so fast? Here's a simple toolkit. Number 1, stop mind reading. You have no idea what's going on in someone else's head, so just ask them. Check your perceptions with other people. Number 2, get really good at telling the difference between a hard fact and the story or inference you're telling yourself about it. And finally, keep an eye on that sneaky self-serving bias. Look, if there is one thing you remember from all of this, let it be this right here. Your perception is your reality. But it is not the reality. It is a partial, totally subjective story. Just knowing that, just accepting that, is the first and most important step to becoming a better, more compassionate communicator.
So now you know how the magic trick works. You know the process. And that means you have a choice. You can just let your automatic filters and scripts run the show, or you can choose to be more mindful, more curious, and more deliberate about how you see the world and the amazing, complicated people in it. The choice, as always, is yours.